He thought humans were harmless, until the scan revealed the truth. First Contact Protocol Captain Zephyr Vektal of the Galactic survey vessel Eternal Wanderer adjusted his neural interface headset as the massive human cargo vessel Iron Phoenix drifted into scanning range. The ship was a behemoth, crude, angular, and utterly primitive by Confederation standards. Its hull showed evidence of micrometeorite impacts, radiation scoring, and what appeared to be hastily welded repair patches. "Fascinating," murmured Dr. Quillen Nethys from the xenobiology station, her forearms dancing across holographic displays. "The humans have achieved interstellar travel using chemical propulsion and basic fusion drives. It's like watching a child build a starship from scrap metal." Zephyr's mandibles clicked in amusement. The Vekhari had been spacefaring for over 3 millennia, while humans had barely mastered fire when his ancestors first achieved faster-than-light travel. These newcomers to the galactic community were endearing in their primitive enthusiasm. "Initiate standard first contact protocols," Zephyr commanded. "Let's see what these young mammals have to offer the Confederation." The communication array crackled to life, and a human face appeared on the main display. The creature was bipedal, covered in pale pink skin, with small eyes and a mouth surrounded by facial hair. It wore a simple blue uniform with metallic insignia. "This is Captain Marcus Holloway of the merchant vessel Iron Phoenix," the human said, its voice rough and unrefined. "We're carrying agricultural supplies and medical equipment to the Kepler colony. Thanks for the escort offer." Zephyr's confidence swelled. These humans didn't even recognize a military survey vessel when they saw one. "Greetings, Captain Holloway. I am Captain Zephyr Vektal of the Galactic Confederation. We're conducting routine scans of vessels in this sector." "Confederation?" Holloway's primitive features creased in confusion. "Never heard of you folks. But scan away. We've got nothing to hide." Dr. Nethys began her analysis, her sensors penetrating the human vessel's crude shielding with ease. "Remarkable naivety," she whispered to Zephyr. "They're completely unaware we could disable their ship with a single focused pulse." The initial scans revealed exactly what Zephyr expected. A cargo hold filled with food supplies, basic medical equipment, and what appeared to be farming implements. The crew complement showed 37 life signs, all registering as baseline human physiology. Their technology was centuries behind Confederation standards. Their weapons were chemical-based projectile systems, and their defensive capabilities were non-existent. "Standard peaceful contact scenario," Zephyr noted in his log. "Species classification, harmless primitive. Recommended status, protectorate candidacy." As the deep tissue scans continued, Dr. Nethys began isolating individual crew members for detailed biological analysis. The humans appeared to be remarkably uniform. Carbon-based bipeds with simple nervous systems and limited cognitive capacity, compared to most Confederation species. "Captain," Nethys called out, her tone shifting slightly. "I'm detecting some unusual readings from the human-designated Chief Engineer Torres. The biological scan is showing anomalous neural activity patterns." Zephyr barely glanced at the readings. Probably some primitive augmentation technology. These species often resort to crude cybernetic modifications to compensate for their biological limitations. The scan continued deeper, and Nethys fell silent, her compound eyes fixed on her displays. After several minutes, she spoke again, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty. "Sir, the neural patterns aren't augmentation. They're natural, and the energy readings are increasing." Energy readings. Zephyr finally looked at the data stream. The numbers were climbing steadily, but they still fell well within acceptable parameters for a primitive species. Probably some kind of electrical field generation. Many carbon-based life forms exhibit minor bioelectric phenomena. But as he watched, the readings continued to rise. Chief Engineer Rosa Torres was showing neural activity levels that shouldn't be possible for such a primitive brain structure. More concerning, similar patterns were beginning to appear in other crew members as the scan progressed. "Continue the analysis," Zephyr commanded, though something cold was beginning to settle in his stomach. "We need a complete biological profile before we can determine their Confederation status." Dr. Nethys nodded, but her movements had become more cautious. The deep scan was revealing layers of complexity that shouldn't exist in such a supposedly primitive species, and with each passing minute, the energy readings from the human vessel continued to climb toward levels that made even a veteran Confederation captain begin to question his assumptions. The Iron Phoenix drifted serenely through space. Its crew, apparently unaware that they were being dissected by alien technology, but in the depths of the Confederation survey vessel, readings were accumulating that would soon challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. Deeper scans Dr. Quillen Nethys found herself staring at impossible data streams as the deep biological scan of the human vessel continued. Her four hands moved frantically across holographic controls, cross-referencing readings against the Confederation's vast database of known species. "Captain," she called out, her voice tight with concentration, "I need you to see this." Captain Zephyr approached the xenobiology station, his confidence beginning to waver. The readings cascading across the displays showed neural activity patterns that defied conventional understanding of primitive species development. The human-designated Captain Holloway is exhibiting cognitive processing speeds that rival our own, Nethys reported. But that's not the disturbing part. Look at this. She highlighted a section of the scan focusing on the human's brainstem. He's using less than 12% of his neural capacity. Zephyr's mandibles clicked nervously. 12%? That's impossible. No species can maintain consciousness while utilizing so little of their available neural architecture. It gets worse. Nethys pulled up a comparative analysis. I've now scanned 17 crew members. Every single one shows the same pattern, vast neural networks that appear to be dormant or suppressed. If these readings are accurate, the average human brain has processing power equivalent to a Class 7 Confederation AI. The implications hit Zephyr like a plasma bolt. Class 7 AIs were restricted technology, used only for the most complex scientific calculations and military strategic planning. If humans possessed this level of cognitive potential naturally, "Run the scan again," he ordered. "Focus on their physical capabilities." Dr. Nethys complied, directing the sensors toward the human's muscular and skeletal systems. The results were equally disturbing. Muscle fiber density is approximately 3 times higher than baseline readings suggested. Bone structure shows stress tolerances that would allow them to survive in gravitational fields up to 15 standard units. 15. Zephyr's voice cracked. His own species could barely function under 3 standard gravity units. "Are you saying these humans are naturally adapted for high-gravity worlds?" "Not adapted. Built for them. Look at their cardiovascular systems." The display showed a complex network of vessels and chambers. Dual redundant circulation, reinforced cardiac muscle, oxygen-carrying capacity that's off the charts. These aren't the biological markers of a species that evolved on a garden world, Captain. As if responding to their scrutiny, the energy readings from the human ship began fluctuating in patterns that suggested coordinated activity. Chief Engineer Torres was moving through the ship's lower decks, and wherever she went, the background, radiation levels spiked. "She's not using tools," Nethys observed, tracking the human's movement. "The energy surges are coming directly from her nervous system. Captain, I think she's interfacing with their ship's systems through some kind of bioelectric field." Zephyr pulled up the communication channel to the human vessel. Captain Holloway's face appeared, still showing that same relaxed, almost naive expression. "Everything all right over there?" Holloway asked. "Your scans are pretty thorough. Most inspection protocols don't take this long." "Just ensuring all safety protocols are met," Zephyr replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Tell me, Captain, what kind of training do your crew members receive?" Holloway shrugged. "Standard merchant marine certification. Rosa, our chief engineer, she's got some military background, Marines, I think. Served in the Titan campaigns before going civilian." "Military campaigns?" Zephyr's throat constricted. "What sort of military campaigns?" "Oh, the usual. Colonial defense, some anti-piracy work. Nothing too exciting." Holloway's expression remained casual, but something flickered behind his eyes. "A momentary hardness that hadn't been there before. Dr. Nethys was frantically pulling up additional scan data. Captain, I'm detecting weapon signatures throughout their vessel. Not just the primitive projectile systems we initially identified. The display showed energy patterns embedded within the ship's hull itself. What they had initially dismissed as structural supports were revealing themselves to be something far more sophisticated. Plasma conduits, Nethys whispered. Magnetic field generators. Captain, this isn't a cargo vessel, it's a warship disguised as a merchant craft. The full implications crashed over Zephyr like a tidal wave. The humans weren't primitive newcomers to space travel. They were something else entirely, something that had learned to hide its true nature behind a facade of harmless simplicity. Sir, his communications officer called out urgently. I'm detecting additional human vessels approaching this sector. 7 ships. They're using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors can barely track them. On the main display, Captain Holloway's expression had shifted subtly. The naive merchant captain was gone, replaced by something predatory and calculating. Captain Vectel, Holloway said, his voice carrying new authority. I think it's time we had an honest conversation. You've been scanning us for quite a while now, and I'm betting you've learned some interesting things. The question is, what are you planning to do with that information? Zephyr realized with growing horror that the hunters had become the hunted. The primitive humans had been studying them just as thoroughly as they'd been studying the humans. And somehow, despite all their technological superiority, the Confederation had walked straight into a trap. The truth revealed Captain Zephyr Vectal's breathing apparatus struggled to maintain proper atmospheric levels as panic set in. The approaching human vessels had fully decloaked, revealing sleek, predatory designs that bore no resemblance to the crude Iron Phoenix. These ships looked like they could tear through Confederation battlecruisers without breaking stride. Captain Holloway, Zephyr managed, his voice steady despite the terror clawing at his throat. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. The Confederation has always sought peaceful contact with emerging species. Holloway's expression had transformed completely. Gone was the simple merchant captain, replaced by someone whose eyes held the weight of countless battles. Emerging species? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Captain, humanity has been watching your Confederation for over 2 centuries. We've been studying you, learning from you, and honestly, we've been pretty disappointed. Dr. Nethys pulled up tactical displays showing the approaching human fleet. Captain, their ships are generating energy signatures I've never seen before. The lead vessel is reading as a Class 12 threat level. Class 12 was theoretical, a designation reserved for weapons that could sterilize entire star systems. No known species possessed such technology. You want to know the truth about humans? Holloway continued, his image now flanked by what appeared to be military officers. We're not from some peaceful garden world that just learned to reach for the stars. We're from Earth, a Class 15 death world where everything evolves to kill everything else. Zephyr's mandibles went slack. Class 15 death worlds were considered uninhabitable. The Confederation had strict protocols against even approaching such hellscapes. 15-hour days with massive tidal forces from an oversized moon. Holloway continued conversationally. Gravity that would crush most of your species. An atmosphere that's basically a slow poison to anyone not adapted to it. Weather systems that generate storm fronts capable of leveling cities. And that's on a good day. The lead human warship was now close enough for detailed scans. Dr. Nethys's readings showed armor plating that appeared to be grown rather than manufactured, weapon systems that defied conventional physics, and energy cores that burned with the intensity of small stars. But here's the really fun part, Holloway said, noting their obvious distress. Earth isn't even our homeworld. We colonized it after our original planet was destroyed in a war against something you couldn't even comprehend. Earth was just where we went to get strong enough to eventually hunt down the things that tried to exterminate us. Impossible, Zephyr whispered. No species could survive on a Class 15 world, let alone thrive there. Chief Engineer Torres, Holloway called out. Would you mind giving our new friends a demonstration? On the scan displays, the human engineer's energy signature suddenly exploded upward. The Iron Phoenix began reconfiguring itself, hull plates sliding away to reveal weapon systems that made Confederation battleships look like children's toys. But more terrifying was Torres herself. The biological scan showed her nervous system, interacting directly with the ship's systems, her brain processing information at speeds that made quantum computers seem sluggish. Rosa's grandmother was a combat engineer in the Vegan Liberation, Holloway explained casually. Her genetic modifications allow her to interface directly with military-grade systems, very handy for someone who needs to rewire a plasma cannon while under enemy fire. Genetic modifications? Dr. Nethys's voice was barely a whisper. Oh, did I forget to mention that? Humans have been practicing selective breeding and genetic enhancement for millennia. We had to, in order to survive the wars that forged us. Holloway's smile was predatory. Every human you've scanned represents thousands of years of evolutionary pressure and deliberate genetic optimization. The truth was becoming clear to Zephyr with horrifying clarity. Humanity wasn't a primitive species. They were apex predators who had learned to disguise themselves as harmless prey. The entire merchant vessel scenario had been an elaborate test of Confederation intentions and capabilities. The agricultural supplies, Zephyr said numbly. Terraforming biologicals, Holloway confirmed. Designed to convert hostile worlds into human habitable environments. The medical equipment, combat stims, and battlefield surgical systems. We've been watching your trade routes for months, learning your patrol patterns, studying your technology. Why? Zephyr asked. What do you want from us? Holloway's expression became almost sympathetic. Captain, your Confederation spans over 3,000 star systems. You've made contact with hundreds of species. You've established trade networks, cultural exchanges, and peaceful exploration protocols. He paused. But you've also done something else. You've created a massive soft target for the things that are coming. What things? The same entities that destroyed our original homeworld. The same ones that hunt civilizations across the galaxy, feeding on their achievements before moving on to the next victim. Holloway's voice dropped to a whisper. They're called the Devourers, and they've been tracking Confederation expansion for decades. Your peaceful little alliance is like a dinner bell to them. Dr. Nethys was frantically cross-referencing their databases. Captain, I'm finding references to unexplained disappearances of entire star systems along the galactic rim. Colonies that simply vanished without a trace. Now you're starting to understand, Holloway said. Humanity survived because we learned to fight monsters. We adapted, we evolved, we became something that could stand against the darkness between stars. Your Confederation, it's everything we used to be. Peaceful, trusting, unprepared. The human fleet had now formed a protective perimeter around the Confederation survey vessel. Zephyr realized with a start that they weren't being threatened, they were being protected. The question now, Holloway continued, is whether your people are willing to learn what it takes to survive what's coming. Because, Captain, the Devourers have found your Confederation, and they're already on their way. Part 4. The warning Captain Zephyr Vektal found himself in the unprecedented position of hosting a war council aboard his own vessel. The human delegation had transported over with technology that made Confederation matter transmission systems look primitive. They had simply walked through what appeared to be solid space, emerging from quantum tunnels that shouldn't have been possible to generate with portable equipment. Captain Marcus Holloway now stood in the center of the Eternal Wanderer's command deck, no longer bothering to maintain his merchant captain facade. His uniform had shifted to reveal rank insignia that marked him as a fleet admiral in what was apparently called the Human Defense Initiative. Beside him stood Chief Engineer Rosa Torres, whose casual scan of the Confederation ship systems with her bare hands had revealed security vulnerabilities that made Zephyr's technical staff pale with terror. "Show them the recordings," Holloway commanded. A third human, introduced as intelligence analyst Dr. Kendra Voss, activated a holographic display that filled the command deck with images of stellar carnage. Entire star systems reduced to debris. Fields, planets stripped of their atmospheres. space stations torn apart at the molecular level. This is what remains of the Andorian Federation, Dr. Voss explained, her voice clinical despite the horrific imagery. 47 star systems, over 200 billion sentient beings. The Devourers consumed everything in less than 6 standard months. Dr. Nethys studied the data with growing horror. The energy signatures, they're using the stars themselves as weapons. The Devourers don't just destroy civilizations, Torres added, her neural interface still connected to both the human and Confederation systems simultaneously. They harvest them. Every technological advancement, every cultural achievement, every unique biological adaptation, it all gets absorbed into their collective consciousness. Zephyr forced himself to ask the question that terrified him most. How long do we have? Holloway pulled up a galactic map, showing the slow but inexorable progression of dead systems along the galaxy's outer rim. Based on their historical patterns, we estimate 18 months before they reach the Confederation core worlds, maybe 24 if we're lucky. And you're telling us this because humanity needs allies, Holloway said bluntly. We've been fighting the Devourers for over 3,000 years. We've won some battles, lost others, but we've never faced them at full strength. Intelligence suggests they're mobilizing their entire collective for an assault on this galactic sector. Dr. Voss manipulated the holographic display to show tactical analyses that made Zephyr's head spin. The Devourers operate using quantum phase entities that exist partially outside normal spacetime. Their ships can phase through conventional matter, making standard weapons ineffective. Their energy absorption capabilities mean they actually grow stronger when attacked with traditional plasma or particle beam weapons. Then how do you fight them? Dr. Nethys asked. Torres smiled grimly. Very carefully, and with weapons that exist in the same quantum state they do, which is why human technology appears so strange to your sensors. We've spent millennia learning to build equipment that operates in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously. The implications hit Zephyr like a nova. That's why your neural readings were so unusual. You're not just using 12% of your brain capacity. You're using the rest to process information from multiple dimensional states. Got it in one, Holloway confirmed. Every human is born with the capacity to perceive and interact with quantum phase entities. It's not a choice. It's a survival trait our species developed out of absolute necessity. Dr. Voss activated another display showing the approaching human fleet in detail. Zephyr could now see that the ships weren't just technologically advanced. They were works of art, each one a perfect fusion of organic and synthetic components that seemed to grow and adapt in real time. Our ships are partially alive, Torres explained, noting his fascination. They're symbiotic entities that bond with their crews. The human nervous system interfaces directly with the ship's consciousness, creating a hybrid entity that can think and react at quantum processing speeds. Consciousness? Zephyr's voice cracked. Your ships are sentient? Has to be, Holloway said. The Devourers can corrupt and control any purely mechanical system. Only living consciousness can resist their influence, and only hybrid consciousness can match their processing capabilities. The War Council continued for hours, with the humans revealing tactical information that painted a picture of a galaxy-spanning conflict that had been raging since before the Confederation's founding. Humanity hadn't been hiding from galactic civilization out of primitive fear. They'd been fighting a war to protect civilizations that didn't even know they were under threat. The question now, Holloway said as the briefing concluded, is whether the Confederation is willing to undergo the modifications necessary to survive what's coming. Modifications? Zephyr asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Genetic enhancement, neural augmentation, symbiotic bonding with quantum phase entities. Dr. Voss's expression was sympathetic but firm. Captain, your species will need to become something more than what you currently are. The alternative is extinction. And if we refuse? Holloway's expression became infinitely sad. Then humanity will do what we've always done. We'll fight alone, and we'll mourn another fallen civilization. But Captain, we're tired of mourning. We're tired of being the only ones left standing after the darkness passes. The weight of decision settled on Zephyr's shoulders like a gravitational field. He was being asked to recommend that his entire species undergo radical transformation, to abandon their current form in favor of something that could stand against cosmic-level threats. How long do we have to decide? He asked. The advanced scouts of the Devourer fleet will reach Confederation space in approximately 90 standard days, Torres replied, her connection to the human fleet's sensor networks providing real-time intelligence. After that, the choice will be made for you. Zephyr looked around his command deck at officers whose worldview had been shattered in the span of a few hours. The galaxy they thought they knew, peaceful, rational, governed by scientific principles, had revealed itself to be a battleground between forces beyond their comprehension. "I'll need to contact Confederation Command immediately," he said finally. "Already. Done," Holloway replied. "We've been in communication with your government for the past 6 months. This meeting was their idea. They wanted independent verification of our claims from a ship's captain they trusted." The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. This hadn't been a chance encounter or a routine survey mission. It had been a carefully orchestrated revelation designed to prepare the Confederation for the choice that would determine their species' survival. The choice. 3 months after the revelation aboard the Eternal Wanderer, the Confederation High Council convened an emergency session on the capital world of New Titan. Captain Zephyr Vectal stood before the assembled representatives of 47 species, his report having shattered the illusion of galactic peace that had persisted for over a millennium. Chancellor Vrax of the Alterian Republic, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation, addressed the human delegation that had been granted unprecedented access to the council chambers. "You ask us to abandon everything we are, to transform our very nature based on the threat of an enemy we've never encountered." Admiral Holloway, now revealed as the Supreme Commander of Humanity's Defense Initiative, stood calmly before the assembled dignitaries. Beside him, Dr. Kendra Voss maintained a holographic display showing real-time tactical data from the galaxy's outer rim. "Chancellor," Holloway replied respectfully, "the Devourers have already consumed 3 more star systems since our last meeting. The Rigel Collective, with their advanced defensive networks, lasted exactly 4 days. Their final transmission was a warning that matches everything we've told you." The holographic display shifted to show the death throes of an entire civilization. Planetary shields failing. Evacuation fleets being consumed by entities that moved through space like living shadows. Entire worlds being drained of life in hours rather than days. "The evidence is overwhelming," Dr. Voss added, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of accumulated intelligence. "Every major galactic civilization that has faced the Devourers has followed the same pattern: initial disbelief, delayed response, desperate defense, and finally extinction. The only variable is how long each phase takes." Counselor Thresh of the Vekhari hegemony, Zephyr's own species representative, clicked his mandibles nervously. "The genetic modifications you propose, they're irreversible. You're asking us to voluntarily cease being what we've always been." "With respect, Counselor," Chief Engineer Torres interjected, "you're asking the wrong question. The real question is whether you want your species to exist at all in 6 months. Her neural interface crackled with energy as she accessed the Council's own databases, displaying their classified military assessments with casual ease. "Your combined fleets total approximately 50,000 warships. The Devourer Advance Force alone consists of over 2 million entities, each one capable of phasing through your defensive systems and converting your own weapons into additional attackers." The mathematical reality was sobering. Even if every Confederation species contributed their entire military capacity, they would be outnumbered 40-1 by an enemy that could negate their technological advantages. "However," Holloway continued, "the modified humans currently number approximately 4 billion combat-capable individuals. Our ships are individually more effective than Devourer entities, and our weapons can actually destroy them permanently, rather than simply dispersing their quantum matrices." Dr. Nethys, who had been granted special status as a xenobiological consultant, activated her own displays. The modifications aren't as radical as they initially appear, she reported. Humanity has essentially created a symbiotic relationship with quantum phase entities, allowing for enhanced neural processing and multidimensional perception. The genetic changes are extensive, but manageable. Manageable? Chancellor Vrax's crystalline structure flared with indignation. You're talking about fundamentally altering the consciousness of entire species. Yes, Holloway replied simply, because consciousness as it currently exists in your species cannot perceive or interact with devourer entities. You literally cannot see them coming until they've already begun consuming your worlds. The debate raged for hours, with species representatives arguing about cultural preservation, biological integrity, and the ethics of forced evolution. But underlying every argument was the growing recognition that conventional resistance was futile. Finally, Ambassador Kellen of the Terran colonies, one of the few non-enhanced human representatives, stood to address the council. I speak as someone who chose to remain unmodified, he said quietly. I've watched my enhanced colleagues develop capabilities that seem miraculous, but they're still recognizably human. They still love, create, explore, and dream. They've simply become more than they were. He paused, his expression grave. But I've also seen the devourer attacks. I've witnessed the consumption of entire civilizations while standing beside enhanced humans who could perceive and fight the attackers. The difference between survival and extinction comes down to a single factor: the ability to exist in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously. Captain Zephyr found himself rising to address the council. I've spent 3 months studying the human modifications, he said. The neurological changes enhance existing capabilities rather than replacing them. The genetic alterations provide new sensory modalities without eliminating existing ones. We wouldn't stop being ourselves. We'd become more capable versions of ourselves. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than anyone had expected. 24 species voted in favor of the modification program, 22 opposed, and 1 abstained. By the narrowest possible margin, the Confederation had chosen survival over genetic purity. The modification process will begin immediately, Holloway announced. We estimate 18 months to complete the essential transformations for all Confederation species. The Devourer main fleet will arrive in approximately 22 months, giving us a narrow window for preparation. As the council session concluded, Zephyr approached the human delegation. Admiral, I have to ask, how do you know the modifications will be enough? How do you know we can actually win? Holloway's expression became thoughtful. Captain, humanity has been fighting the Devourers for 3 millennia. We've never achieved total victory, but we've learned something important. They're not invincible. They're just very, very old and very, very patient. He gestured toward the tactical displays still showing the approaching threat. But they've made a crucial mistake this time. They've revealed themselves to a galaxy that still has time to prepare, and they've done it in the presence of the one species that knows how to fight them. So we have a chance? Captain, Holloway said with a grim smile. We have something better than a chance. We have hope, determination, and the combined strength of 47 species that have chosen to evolve rather than die. The Devourers have never faced anything like what we're about to become. As the Confederation began its unprecedented transformation, the first modified volunteers reported experiences that defied description. Perception of reality that extended across dimensional boundaries, consciousness that could interface directly with quantum phase technologies, and an awareness of threats that had been invisible to their unenhanced senses. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in millennia, that change was by choice, rather than conquest. The question now was whether it would be enough when the darkness between stars finally arrived to test their newfound capabilities against an enemy that had devoured civilizations since before the first star was born.